I have never stood before a judge with trembling hands, never felt the weight of a jury's stare, nor worn the polished shoes of a lawyer arguing for someone's freedom. I'm not bound by a license, nor by the rituals of courtrooms and cross examinations. I am bound by curiosity, by the need to understand why some people always seem to win arguments, even when the odds crush them from the start. I have sat in cafes with lawyers who spoke like poets. I enjoyed coffees with public defenders whose eyes carried the exhaustion of 10 lives. I've watched men argue over things that didn't matter and lose things that did. I have listened, always listened, and learned that every unwinnable argument hides a secret. That secret isn't about logic or law, it's about human nature. People don't really argue for truth, they argue for belonging, for pride, for the feeling of being seen and understood. The best persuaders are the ones who win from behind. They don't fight harder, they listen deeper. I have learned this not from the textbooks or seminars, but from the quiet hours after every heated debate, when one side leaves triumphant and the other leaves changed. There's something about losing that reveals who we really are. Losing strips away our cleverness, our rehearsed lines, our masks, and in that raw space, truth starts to speak. When I began studying how the greatest minds turn weakness into strength, lawyers, negotiators, preachers, politicians, and lovers, I noticed a pattern. The best never rush to prove. They begin by understanding what drives the other person's fear. They build bridges before drawing swords. They shape the story instead of shouting facts. That's what this book is all about. Not about winning in the arrogant sense, but about being the quiet, strategic art of taking the losing side and shifting the gravity of an argument. It's about defending what seems indefensible, not because it's right, but because it deserves to be heard. It's about being that person who steps into chaos and somehow brings coherence to it. Somewhere along the way, I realized that every argument in court, in business, in love is a story war. Whoever controls the story controls the meaning. Whoever owns the meaning wins. The best arguments aren't loud, they are cinematic. You can see them, feel them, almost smell the tension in the air. The air changes before a great argument, just like before a storm. This book began not as a collection of techniques, but as a series of moments I witnessed, small, human, unforgettable. The trembling hand of a young lawyer facing a hostile crowd, the silent stare of a man accused, waiting for someone to believe him, the subtle power of a woman who says nothing, yet dismantles a room with a single question. I watched these things happen. I took notes. I began connecting the dots, and I realized something. You don't have to be right to win. You just have to be real. That's why I call myself a lifelong student, not a lawyer, not a guru, just someone who studies the game, the arguments, the silences, the stories we tell ourselves when truth feels too heavy to hold. So, If you've ever found yourself on the losing side, outnumbered, out argued, or simply unseen, this book is for you. I have been there too, sitting quietly in the back of the room, watching the tide turn, wondering how one person could bend a whole crowd without raising their voice. In these next pages, we will break down how it's done, not through manipulation, but through understanding, not through dominance, but through depth, not by shouting louder, but by learning how to make the silence work for you. Because in every argument, legal or personal, professional or spiritual, there's always one thing more powerful than being right. It's being understood. And once you understand the art of being understood, the losing side isn't a disadvantage anymore. It's a stage, a chance to rewrite the story from underneath, where real persuasion begins. So let's begin there on the losing side. That's where all great victories start.